Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Drum Shuffle. This is Jamie Eads joining you as always. This is episode 23. We are super excited to be joined today by the great Dafnis Prieto. Dafnis, of course, born in Cuba, a winner of the MacArthur Fellowship in 2011, and leader of the Dafnis Prieto Big Band, just doing fantastic work out there. We're really excited to have him, so please stay tuned. Los Cabos drumsticks may be the best-kept secret from drummers today. Los Cabos drumsticks makes the finest tools to touch a drummer's hands in the business. The best news, almost every popular stick size is available in both white hickory and red hickory. If you don't know what red hickory is, it's made from the heartwood of the hickory tree, unlike regular white hickory, which is made from sapwood. Red hickory drumsticks will hold up to even the hardest hitting drummers. Their durability comes from the density of the wood, but they do not sacrifice the feel. Please visit LosCabosDrumsticks.com to learn more about their products. And don't forget to ask at your favorite retailer for Los Cabos drumsticks. All right, everybody, as I mentioned, we are joined today by the great Dafnis Prieto. Dafnis, of course, is the leader of the Dafnis Prieto Big Band, just a fantastic jazz and Afro-Cuban drummer. Born in Cuba, moved to the United States in 1999, has just been doing a ton of great work, a fantastic drummer. He teaches at the University of Miami in Miami, Florida, of course, band leader extraordinaire. And as I mentioned in my intro, he was the winner of the prestigious MacArthur Fellowship in 2011. We have just a great conversation with Dafnis. So please help me welcome Dafnis Prieto to the Drum Shuffle. Good afternoon, Dafnis. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Jamie. Thank you. I'm doing good, thanks. Awesome.
Well, we really appreciate you taking time to come on the Drum Shuffle and talk a little bit about your career and your new release. Dafnis, typically what we do is we start at the very beginning, and I think your story is a great one. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing in Cuba and how you became a drummer.
Well, I started really young in music on my own when I was like about 6 or 7 years old. I started playing guitar, and then little by little I started switching. I started playing bongos. And then when I was 10 years old, I started in the music academy, and I started doing the classical training. And from then on, I started doing my musical training mostly in classical, 4 years in my hometown in Santa Clara, and then another 4 years in Havana in the National School of Music. And that's how, I was trained there. Then, on the side of that, I learned how to play the drum sets. I'm actually self-taught on drum sets.
Wow.
And in composition as well and stuff like that. But, the training that I got in Cuba really helped me to get the basic knowledge and to figure it out how I can do all these other things that I was interested on. That was basically it. So when I was 18, I graduated from the National School of Music and I started playing different bands in Cuba, mostly within a little bit, like kind of a mix between jazz and Cuban music and things like that. So that was pretty much a little bit of my beginnings in a nutshell.
Sure. Well, and maybe I guess I could show some ignorance here, but, I have a 13-year-old daughter who is very much into ballet, and she has been dancing ballet since she was 2 years old. And, a lot of her teachers, she has grown up in the Cuban tradition of ballet. Her formative years were taught by, Cuban professional ballet dancers. And, so I know a little bit about folks growing up in Cuba, but I'm assuming you couldn't just go down the street and pick up a copy of Modern Drummer or, buy a shiny new ride cymbal or anything like that. So does coming from Cuba, does it give you a different, obviously it gives you a different background, but does it give you a different appreciation of drumming, I guess you would say?
Well, the thing is that to me there are different kind of branches or sources in a way of how to get information. And, it's interesting that you say that the magazines and the instruments in itself, and it was difficult to get, this kind of stuff. But at the same time, we have a very rich culture with an unbelievable rhythmic tradition that, it goes back to hundreds of years, and it comes right directly, many of them from Africa, which is a very powerful land for rhythm and music in general, and culture. So therefore, I don't, I have, for example, in my book, in a book that I published 2 or 3 years ago, it's called The World of Rhythmic Possibilities. There is a chapter that is dedicated to those exercises that I had to create myself because I didn't have like a specific drum set method to practice. So, I mean, there is it's just a different scenario, and therefore, whatever comes out of that is going to be different because it's influenced by that scenario, that environment, as well as not having as much information as you could have here in the U.S., but at the same time having other things culturally. So, it's a give and take in a way, in regards to that.
Sure. Well, I mean, anybody that's familiar with your playing, it knows that you're just an absolute monster behind the kit. I mean, you're, I don't say that lightly. You're incredibly talented and gifted. When you first came to the U.S., it's my understanding that you went straight to New York. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I went to New York when I was in 1999.
Okay. When you got to New York, and you brought up a really good point, the tradition of, Afro-Cuban jazz, I mean, it's all over the place. And it's just incredibly, what I would call joyful music. I mean, it's just, you can't help but smile when you listen to it.
Right.
When you got to New York, tell us a little bit about how you started, getting into the scene in New York, and your playing there.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I knew a few musicians already that were there. I knew musicians like Steve Coleman and Henry Tregel and also Brian Lynch. And I know a few others. And then I started just playing around. And, the beginning was very challenging for me because, to say the truth, it was not my first option that it came from me to go to New York. It was almost like a destiny that I end up kind of a little bit stuck on the way to go back to where I was living at that time, that was Spain. And because of that, I was actually in Canada, and I was not allowed to go back to Spain for a year. So they basically denied my visa to go to Spain. And then I didn't want to really stay in Toronto. So New York was the only really place that I could go in terms of my professional career, and I had a lot of friends that told me this is your chance to do it. And then when I got to New York, as I say, it was challenging because I still had my doubts about how that was going to work out. But at the same time, I did what I had to do, and And little by little, I start getting more comfortable in the scene, and I start meeting a lot of musicians that were at that time, living in New York, and I met a lot of great people, and so that was really the beginning. And I started, working, playing with these gentlemen that I told you already, and many more.
Well, and I think that, when I listen to, your new record, Back to the Sunset, and I don't want to skip around too much here, but I certainly want to talk about the record because it's so good. It really is. It's so good.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, it truly is, as I said earlier, I put it on to listen to it, and immediately, I was just smiling from ear to ear. I mean, it's, it's dance music, it's going to make you move. But you have your own independent music label, Dafnis Music. You are, you've won some very prestigious awards. How did you, I know it's not easy to, come from a different culture, a different country, and start playing. All of this didn't just happen overnight. I know you put in a lot of work. So tell us a little bit about how you started getting on the radar of, Modern Drummer and things like that. You've done some excellent instructional videos for Drumeo, for example. How did that attention start happening once you got to the States?
I guess it was a result of of me playing around, and I guess some kind of buzz that was created at some point where the people in Modern Drummer and many other outlets, kind of pay attention to what I was doing, and they like it, and they invited me. I think it's a result of playing with the enormous variety of artists that I was playing at that time. Not only within the Latin scene, but also within the jazz scene, and much more within the avant-garde scene as well. So it was a wide range of styles and possibilities. And then, one point gets to the other point, and start, escalating and moving around with different people. And I start creating my own music as well early on when I arrived into New York as well. And then I started putting my records. The first two records were released by a small label. It's called Zoho Music. My first two records. And then after that, I made the decision to do my own label and publish any work that I wanted to do, publish it myself. And that was another labor of work and love because
sure,
it took a lot of time to, just the courage to make it happen, and swiping the credit card and moving on and believing in yourself, and etc. Yeah. But it was it was challenging but rewarding at the same time. Very rewarding. And I don't know, I think everyone has his own way of doing things, and it's not only about playing, but about, the attitude and about the way you actually, behave, professionally, and what you do, what you have to offer musically. So I think everyone has a very specific path and a way to go in this journey,
Sure, absolutely. Well, the thing that really I think strikes me, about your playing is how fearless it is. It really is. And your writing, it's not, some guys write in only one style or one genre. You're an incredible jazz player. You're an incredible Latin player. You mentioned avant-garde a minute ago. Your playing has really been, fearless. That's the word that I'm going to use. The polyrhythms are incredible, and certainly your clave is impeccable. I would imagine that you put in a lot of hours practicing to be so fluent in so many different styles and genres.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I had to do my homework as everyone has to, and I was immersed in already while I was doing the homework at the same time, so I was able to execute and just put out playing those ideas that I was practicing in a way, and I had the opportunity to play with great percussionists and great musicians that I learned a lot from them as well. And my most interesting point of all of this is like I'm not really focusing on genre. I just play what the music needs.
Yeah.
And if that takes whatever it takes, that's what it takes. And in my compositions as well, I'm trying to represent myself. I'm not really going for I am this kind of musician or this kind of drummer or this kind. I am my kind. That's the kind that I am, and that's the best that I can do.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, and I mean, I think once you become a leader, when you're doing your own projects, it allows you to really show your own personality in the music, certainly. But, so in the effort of full disclosure, I'm not a jazz guy. I love listening to it, but I can't play it very well. I grew up in the rock and roll world. And I can only imagine what it's like to play in a 17-piece big band, and the record that came out, back in April, Back to the Sunset, is the Dafnis Prieto Big Band. It's a 17-piece.
Yeah.
And the record is just so great. And you would think, okay, big band music, goes back to a certain time, but this is, I don't know, it's a fresh take on the big band, and it sounds different than those classic big bands. Tell us a little bit about putting together the big band.
Well, thank you for saying that, because my intention was not to sound like any other big band. And as I say, it's the same intention that I have when I play drums or when I write music. My intention is to be as much honest as possible when I write the music. So I did all the compositions and I did all the arrangements. I actually did a few songs which are included on this record as well for other big bands. I've been, writing music for other ensembles for more than 10 years already, and I did that. So I wanted to actually have a full album of my music with a big band, and I did it my way. I did it with the sounds that I like. I did it with the content of music that I like, and I think it came through. I mean, as I say, I'm not really even considering the idea of, big band is something that happens in a specific time frame in the history of, let's say, jazz music or something. I'm not really thinking about that. I'm thinking about expressing those ideas I have in a bigger format, and obviously it's going to touch sometimes, some of those sounds, but but the intention is much more than that. I'm not trying to imitate or regenerate any other, sounding band. I'm just trying to reflect my ideas through music with this formatting. I used to do, with my previous records with the sextet and also quintet and, different configurations, quartet as well, and trios. So it is very exciting to do it for a 17-piece big band, and we're really happy with the way it came out.
Well, yeah, mission accomplished. I mean, it doesn't, it doesn't sound like, again, other big bands. And what struck me as I listened to it, when you say big band, most people think of, just swinging jazz. This really has the Latin flavor to it, the Afro-Cuban flavor to it. I can only imagine what it was like composing this music. How long a period did you spend on the composition side of the equation?
I worked for a year.
Okay.
Obviously on and off because, I had to do other things in the meantime. But it took me the process of just preparing the whole material, composition and the arrangement for the big band. It took me a full year to do it, and it was very exciting, but I was by myself, so I wasn't sharing it yet. So I was holding that emotion for a full year until it got the realization of playing it with a musician, which, it was the final, result musically.
Right.
So it was very exciting. It was very exciting, and it took me about a year.
Okay. Well, and it's my understanding that, the big band kind of made, you guys did 3 or 4 nights and then immediately kind of went to the studio to do the record. So was how long did you guys rehearse before the big premiere back last summer?
Yeah, that really helped. It really helped. We actually did 3 days of rehearsing. Okay. Then we did 3 nights at the Jazz Standard in New York, and then we went to the studio right after that. So when we got to the studio, everybody knew what they need to do. So it was very easy to make the recording session because we were all rehearsed and tight, and the band, every musician knew what they had to do and how to do it. So it was very, very easy to make the recording. We did the recording session in 2 days.
Oh wow!
And that's a lot of material for 2 days. But still, we had at the end of it, we had like 2 hours left and stuff like that. So we did some minor touch here and there, and stuff like that. So, but that was the way we did it, and I think that was the perfect way because that way we got the music really comes out in the recording as everybody owns the music,
Absolutely. Well, you may be the first drummer alive to come in under budget on a recording date. We always want to go back and do more, so it's pretty amazing that this record came out, over 2 days because it sonically it's beautiful. It sounds great to be such a large orchestra, if you will, it sounds great. And tell us a little bit about the makeup of the big band, because I think it's pretty cool. You have 3 different horn sections. Tell us a little bit about the composition of the band itself and how you made those decisions.
Well, there are so many different strategies when it comes to the arranging of a big band. Where I have 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, and 5 saxophones. Then I have a full rhythm section, including piano, bass, drums, and percussion. So that, I have to think on sounds and how, how many musicians are going to double in other instruments and to get the right musicians to play it, and also was a little of a work. And it has different strategies. It really depends the song. So I'm not really using one full thing in the overall. I'm going step by step and song by song, and even within each song, there are different parts and different strategies that I follow in order to enhance that arrangement, and to come full flow in a way, so that the material is already almost self-spoken,
Absolutely.
and it would be easier for the musicians to deal with. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think my favorite track on the record, and I've listened to it, many times over, is 2 for 1. There's just something about that song that speaks to me. It's just so awesome. There's not another word that I can come up with for it. It's really an awesome song and just a joy to listen to. It's a really great record. Now, are you touring with the big band in support of the album?
Yes, we are. We are actually doing the record release next week in New York from June 7th to the 10th. June 7th to the 10th, we'll be doing the record release of the album.
Okay.
And then we actually have a date at the Carnegie Hall. We're playing on November 10th.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we are also having a few other performances. One at Duke University in North Carolina, and other dates that we have. Also, we're trying to tour the band as much as we can. It's challenging economically to make it happen, but we're pushing forward and try to do as much as we can to have the band play live and have the people enjoy the music live.
Sure. Well, you bring up a really good point. Economically, it's hard for a band of 4 musicians to tour in this day and age. I can only imagine what it's like with 17.
That's right. Yeah, it's very challenging. And, the conditions, they change, and, the money to offer to the musicians is not the same that if you're going to play in a quartet. But, we have a lot of musicians that are in the band that are committed to it, and they like the music, and they know that, maybe today is not that much money offering, but maybe tomorrow is better. So
right.
We that's part of the commitment in terms of trying to do it as much as it is, and stick to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I laugh because, I'm a musician myself, and it is hard to say, well, maybe this gig doesn't pay as much as the gig next week, but stick it out with me, we're all in this together kind of thing. Dafnis, to shift gears a little bit, tell our listeners a little bit about your teaching career, because I know that you teach quite a bit. Tell us a little bit about, where you're teaching and whether or not you're accepting private students right now and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, I teach. I used to teach when I was living in New York. I taught for 10 years at University of New York at NYU. The jazz department there. And then I moved 3 years ago to Florida. I'm now teaching at the University of Miami at the Frost School of Music. And I've been there for 3 years already. And I do clinics and master class when I can. And when I can, I also, receive private students who contact me on my website, and I do it, most of them in Skype, like Skype lessons. So I keep my educational career very active as well, and because also I published a book about 3 years ago. Then that also helped me and helped people to know, where I was standing in terms of my way of teaching and showing and presenting the material. So I like teaching. I enjoy teaching very much. I have a great relation with my students that help them, encouraging them and inspiring them to keep doing what they really like to do.
Well, it's very important, to have a teacher that can bring the best out in any student, whether it's, drums, guitar, or, history, it doesn't matter, but to have, those role models in your life, it's very important. So, I would encourage all of my listeners, if you want to, learn from a really, really good jazz player, Dafnis, as he said, look him up on his website and reach out for a Skype lesson. I think it would be money well spent for anyone. Dafnis, tell us a little bit about, all the other things that you have going on. I mentioned Drumeo earlier. Now I know they're out, Vancouver. I know you travel quite a bit for clinics, as you can, and master classes, as you mentioned, but, I know that there are other folks that are reaching out to you all the time. Hey, come play on my record, all of that good stuff. Kind of walk us through the other things that you're doing besides your own project.
Yeah, besides my own project, I'm really focusing on my own project most of the time. But besides that, I still play some performances, some shows with Michel Camilo, who's someone that I play, for many years already. And I used to be full-time with him in his trios and different configurations. But now we play once in a while, and then I'm actually doing next week a show also with Chucho Valdez. He's another maestro of the piano from Cuba, and I most of the side work that I do is something that it has to be musically appealing to me. One of the reasons why I wanted to really develop my own journey, in a way, musically speaking, of doing my own ensembles and my own music and also my own teachings, etc., is that it allowed me to be more selective on those things that appears on my way that I was not interested. So I guess I'm still working on that, and I still trying to concentrate myself on what is that I really want to do with my time, because I have so much other stuff to do on my own. I have 10 years of work if you just leave me alone in the middle of the forest and creating and stuff. So also doing the touring with my bands and the teaching helps me out to be a little bit more selective of what am I doing in terms of assignment. But as I say, I'm open to playing and making music with those musicians that I and playing the music that I really like.
Sure. Well, we're all envious. As a drummer, I think most drummers typically fall into that sideman role. It's very hard as a drummer to do your own thing, and we all are envious because you've composed all of this. You put together the big band. You have your own label, and you oversaw the recording. It's pretty amazing to take control of your career in that way and really be in charge.
Yeah, it is. It takes a lot of time, and believe me, I have to keep myself on check about being really focused on what is it that is meaningful to me in the short and the long run. So I work hard. I work really hard and try to look and think of possibilities. And, there is always in me that comes out that is almost a necessity. It's almost something that is unavoidable. And that is, I want my voice to be heard in that way, not only playing as a sideman, but also to create my own musical environment and and expressing myself through composition, which I love. I mean, I love composition. This is not something that I'm doing, out of any other desire than that pure, necessity or undesire to really, share what else I can do, and I love the composition, the fact of composing and creating anything that is related to creativity. I'm really, looking forward to spend some time with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, I keep going back to the sunset, but it really shows as well that, this wasn't just something that was, thrown together. Hey guys, let's all, jump in here and improvise and have a good time and jam. It's, the compositions are fully realized. No doubt about it. It's a great record. Dafnis, tell us a little bit about the fellowship. I know that you received a prestigious fellowship. Tell us a little bit about that and the work that led up to receiving that.
Well, that was actually a big, huge surprise. Everyone that get that fellowship, it is a big surprise because you don't have to apply for it, and it's actually a secret process behind it that not many people know about it. And this award is called the MacArthur Award, and I started being the fellow in 2011. That finished on 2015 or 16 actually. Yeah, 16. It was 5 years, and that really allowed me to, more than anything else, besides the visibility that you get when you get the award and everything else, the press and people calling you and, want to congratulate you and et cetera, et cetera. Besides that, it really allowed me to focus on what is it that I really wanted to do. And I had the time because, I was receiving money quarterly. Every 3 months, I was receiving a good sum of money with non-string attached, so I didn't have to deliver anything. What I did, I focused myself on since I was self-publishing and self-releasing everything on my own label. Then I kept doing so, and I made a few records, which that allowed me to make it economically possible, and I also had the time to concentrate on finishing up my book, A World of Rhythmic Possibilities, which it took me 7 years to finish. So, so I spent some of that economic support that comes with the award on my own work, and it was. It's an unbelievable fellowship because, as I say, you don't have apply for it, and you just get a call one day, and the director of the MacArthur at that time, he called me personally, and he say, "I need you to be seated because you have good news coming to you."
Yeah, well,
and I said, "Okay, I'm seated," and I was. I said. Because at that time, actually, it's really interesting. At that time, I was a little bit discouraged about what was happening at that time in my life. I was going through a lot of personal things, and also professional. I wasn't really getting where I wanted to go. Not in the music, but in the whole business of booking and I'm putting my work out there. So that was very encouraging when I received that, and I say, wow, I'm glad that at least some people are listening.
Well, I mean, I think that's a big moment that really kind of freed you up to start the next chapter in your life, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. That change. That's a life changing, because something is always going to happen when you get that kind of recognition, and it was very helpful. It was really really helpful in many different ways, and I'm always grateful for that possibility of being part of a MacArthur, which is basically an organization that focuses on creativity and people that are doing something significant for the community and for for anything, for race, for humans, for anything that is positively creative outcome.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's well deserved. I mean, it's and I'm sincere when I say that, because look, it's in this day and age in the music business as a whole. You know this as well as anybody. It's so hard to get attention for your music. Oh, yeah. It's very difficult. And, I certainly hope, as I said, I'm a rock and roll guy. I probably would not have come across your music had it not been for, the fact that you are such a great drummer, and I think about all the other drummers out there that aren't getting those outlets that I will never discover. It's really hard to get any footing in the business in this day and age, because everybody's a good player now. I mean, most everybody.
There's there's much more stuff going on now than before.
For sure.
The whole media outlet also very confusing. It's very engaging on one side and very confusing on the other.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, here you've got a great record that, you're doing the official release, coming up here in just a few weeks. Is it, your attention has to be divided. Do I do physical product? Do I do video releases? Do I just release it digitally? All of those things, and distribution is a whole other issue that you have to deal with. You have to get it all over the world, so talk to our listeners a little bit about that.
Well, specifically in my experience, through my own label, I haven't had, for example, this is a good example, I haven't had anyone that is a distributing company interested on my catalog or my music or my records. So I did it myself, and I put it on CD Baby, and through CD Baby, it gets distribution through Amazon and iTunes and Apple Music and all these outlets, Spotify and all the online thing. But I sell it also physically on CD Baby. I sell it on my website, which you can get all those sources on my website. And I'm the guy behind the scene in a way. When I get the orders, I'm the one that sends them. Or if I'm not here, I'm traveling, then my wife does it.
Right.
So it's a one-man business in a way now. I have someone who's helping me a lot because he came on board to help me to produce this big band record. His name is Eric Oberstein, and Eric has really helped me a lot, not only with the producing of this big band record, but also putting together my website. Again, we are actually updated and redo it. We redid it, the website all again just a few months before coming out the new record. So anyway, yeah, it's a lot of work, and I have to hire a publicist for press, and I have to hire publicists for radio. And then the selling of the music, which, as I say, you can find it all in my website, either through downloads and, digitally or physical.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's the story of my own band, You know, when we do a release, we use CD Baby because it's easy to get it out to all those different digital outlets. And, you know, it's just different now than it was even 10 years ago. It's just so hard to get your music in the hands of everybody that you want to have it. It is true. It's definitely a journey, no doubt about it. Dafnis, I want to be respectful of your time. I don't want to keep you too long today, but you know, one of the things that we always do on this show is we ask all of our guests for a good piece of advice for other drummers or musicians, and I think you may have kind of a unique perspective on this. You know, given that you grew up in Cuba, you moved to the States, you have really, you know, taken the reins of your own career as a drummer, which, you know, is rare in this day and age. But, you know, share some advice with our listeners on what you've learned over the years.
Well, I learned that we should really be doing what we like doing. I mean, it seems almost dummy to say that, but many people are doing something similar than what they like to be doing, but they're not really doing what they like to be doing fully. So to me, it's really about staying focused and always remembering the reason why we became musicians, and not let the system or whatever environmental, discouraging, moments or episodes destroy that feeling of love for music. And I'm saying that to the audience that is listening, and this is what I say to me many times, because I'm also a human and I get discouraged many times as well. But the most important thing is to remember the reason why you became a musician. And in this case, for me, the reason I became a musician is because I love music and I love sound, and I love playing, and I love to connect with people through sound. The same way other people like talking or doing it through visual arts or painting or poetry or whatever it is. So it is important to always carry that core and that kind of the beginnings of why you're doing this is not necessarily to be. I mean, I know it counts, but success is just a consequence. We have to focus on the source of it.
Well, that's a great piece of advice. And, Dafnis, I respect your playing. It's just simply incredible. I mean that. The website, everybody, is dafnissunmusic.com. Go grab this record, Back to the Sunset. It is just a fantastic album. Dafnis, I wish you nothing but success moving forward. I hope the tour will bring you through the Southeast close to me. I would love to come see the big band live, so I will keep my fingers crossed. And there is an open invitation for you on the Drum Shuffle anytime you'd like to come by and talk about all the awesome stuff you're working on. Feel free to come by anytime. We appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm happy to be doing this interview, and hopefully we'll do much more in the near future. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Dafnis, thank you so much. We'll talk to you real soon.
All right.
All right. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for episode 23 of the Drum Shuffle. Thank you so much for tuning in. We truly do appreciate it. We can't do any of this without all of you tuning in and week out. As always, I'm going to ask you to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're using to listen in. It helps us to continue to grow. We also love hearing from you throughout the week. The Drum Shuffle podcast at gmail.com is our email address. Our web address is thedrumshuffle.com, and you can find more information on me over at jamieeads.com. You are not going to want to miss our episode next week. We are joined by the legendary jazz drummer Peter Erskine. Of course, Peter was just inducted into the Modern Drummer Hall of Fame in 2017. Was named Jazz Drummer of the Year in that same publication, I believe, over 10 times. So we're super excited to have Peter joining us next week. So make sure you tune in for that. We really do appreciate it. Again, keep your emails coming. Keep tuning in. It helps us tremendously, and we certainly appreciate it. So until next time, everybody, may your heads stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers, everybody.